afternoon, whenever you're listening to this, welcome to the internet's most sophisticated wrestling podcast, discussing the weekly aspects of it all, right here on
The Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast.
So there's this thing that I do at the beginning of the episode, like when I tape the intro music for this episode.
I just had a heart attack.
What? Did I shock you? Talk too loud. So when I tape,
you all don't realize the silence we have to deal with until Jimmy comes in.
I know. Well, that's what I'm getting ready to explain.
The crap out of us.
So I always, and I know I've mentioned this on a podcast before, but we always have to pre-tape the music, and they can't hear it, but I can. And right now, I've got two of them on camera, and I can like see them as they're sitting there, like waiting. It's very amusing, and it took me a little bit longer that time. You know why? Because
you're slow.
Everybody kept making noise, and I had to start over, and then start over, and then start over. I had to start over.
I made no noise.
I had to start over 4 times, like rapid fire. But here we are. Welcome, everybody. It is Monday morning, April the 20th. Or not, did I say morning?
Monday night.
Monday night. Well, but if I say more, what do they know? They don't know. If they're listening,
they don't know. Don't tell them.
Monday night, April 27th. I'm on a roll. I'm doing great tonight. I'm in a
Monday Night Monkeys.
I'm in a very Monday Night Monkeys. I love it. I'm in a very good mood, even though I guess I'm not firing on all cylinders when it comes to the podcast. Welcome everybody to the Bald Monkeys Wrestling Podcast. I am one of the captains of the ship. Of course, there's 4 captains, so it's a very awkward ship. We're always just bumping into each other and telling each other, that's why. But I am Big Baby Jimmy. Who else we got here? Call yourselves out.
Christopher's here. I'll call myself out. I'm calling you out, Christopher. I'm going to kick your ass.
I am Steven the Boss. That's all you get.
And last but definitely least, this is Captain Chuckles.
You know, there was this very fun thing that happened in the middle of the week, and well, the only person who wasn't totally down for it initially was Chris, and it was the quarantined life photos.
We totally should have done it. You gotta post it.
I will post that photo. I mean, I've got it on the phone. I think I already saved it and everything. But so basically,
it's out there on Instagram.
I put it on Instagram.
So yeah,
I will.
It's just not on Twitter.
Yeah, I'll post it on Twitter. Probably tomorrow morning. You know, we'll let it be the good.
But it's Monday morning now. Why would you wait a whole day?
Oh my gosh, you know. You guys had to say, you guys had to call me out. They wouldn't have known any better. Anybody listening, they wouldn't have understood. They would have been like, oh, he sure did wait a long time to post the episode. But I mean, I guess they could have recorded in the morning.
Yeah. All 3 of us that listen would know. All 3 of us.
We're going nowhere very fast. Somebody,
but we're going together.
Somebody talk about some wrestling right now. Chris, go.
We're missing Raw right now to tape because Raw is actually on this Monday morning. Just a different time of the week for once. We're missing them bury Andrade some more. But you know what? I do want to talk about wrestling. I want to talk about AEW, and I want to talk about Kenny Omega. And I want your guys' opinion of this version of Kenny Omega, and if you like it or dislike it, and give me a reason why you think it's working or not.
Okay, this is going to be weird. I don't like it. I watched a lot of his stuff in Japan, and I loved every single bit of it. And I think what he's doing now is working, even though I don't like it. In Japan, he was, the leader of his version of the Bullet Club. He had everybody around him. He was the top guy. Now he's showing that he can, be great without being the top guy. But it's just seeing everything he's done in New Japan, being that top guy, being the one running everything. It's just not the same Kenny Omega to me. He's still great. He's amazingly talented. He's one of the most talented people on that roster. It's just he doesn't carry the same, I don't know, pizzazz about him, for lack of a better term.
Do you think the end game though is to then push him like the Kenny Omega of old eventually?
I think so. And I think it could do a massive payoff. Him versus Cody, some of the matches they had were great. And if you let the both of them keep developing what they're doing, let Cody keep getting Cody's great. Let him keep getting better and better. You can have a massive payoff match between them. The match he had with Moxley was great not that long ago in AEW. He seems to have good matches with people who can go with him. Cody can go with just about anybody at this point in his career. So just keep building other people around him. And that could very well be the reason why he's not pushed as the top person right now, is they don't have that level of developed talent that can carry those kind of matches with them, and they don't want to do the same people over and over and over against him. So maybe it's just, laying the groundwork for what could be next.
Yeah, it just seems like a weird situation right now where does anybody else feel like he's a little bit like too cool to be Kenny Omega? Like he's almost acting like too cool right now, where he's wrestling guys and he's having great matches with jobbers. And he's putting jobbers over, which you got to give him credit for, but at the same time it's like, what do we want to see? We want to see the Kenny Omega that Steven's talking about, the Kenny Omega that we always heard about or got to watch YouTube videos about. And we really haven't gotten that Kenny Omega, except for that big tag match that they had and the match that he had with Moxley. There's been two matches essentially that you could point to in AEW that we saw probably the real Kenny Omega. The rest of it just kind of seems like I don't want to say he's not trying. It's almost like he's too cool to try hard. So he's just kind of in cruise control, which is really good. Like, don't get me wrong, it's really good still, but it's missing something. It's
So
missing something a little bit.
so devil's advocate a little bit though, because we talk about Kenny Omega putting people over and why is he not being who he was in New Japan and being the guy? But isn't this the same podcast that criticizes AEW when they push the elite too much? And the only way to create wrestlers sometimes is to try to put them over because the crowd isn't necessarily going to put them over. So we've talked about like, hey, this is a very interesting time period where they can kind of put over people that maybe the crowd won't take to, but if they show them enough, eventually when the crowds come back, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, this is that guy that I've been watching, week to week and, this is starting to work for me."
I get that angle of it too, but at the same time, it's like Kenny Omega is the star power that AEW had to get. They had to get Kenny Omega. If Kenny Omega somehow went to WWE, I don't think AEW would be doing as well as it is doing right now. I just don't. I think he brings such an aura about himself and what he's been to wrestling over the last 10, well, I guess it's 5-7 years, something like that.
Yeah.
He he is AEW, whether he's the top guy or not. And I'm okay with him being this mid card guy or even guy that's not in the title picture. It's the Roman Reigns conversation that we've had until he went for the title. Was going to go for the title against Goldberg. I was really happy seeing Roman Reigns not go after the title. I'd be perfectly fine if Kenny Omega was just having really good matches, really good storylines over and over again. I just I'm missing something from him right now. I'm missing that it that when we go to a live event, we go, holy cow, we're watching Kenny Omega. Even that event was cool to see Kenny Omega, but looking back on it, you didn't get full Kenny Omega. You got like Kenny Omega light. And I feel like that's what we're getting right now. And I'm curious, is something wrong with him? Because he could still go, but he's not quite going as much as he did, say, when he fought Moxley.
And that's what I was saying is like he can go, but if he goes against any of these people who can't keep up, then it's just a one-sided thing, and you're more inclined to get botches or somebody get hurt because he can keep up that pace that maybe Cody, maybe Pac. I don't know about anybody else who can keep that pace up. Moxley can't keep up the pace with Kenny when Kenny gets going, but he can make it up for everything else. Just like when Kenny had those great matches in New Japan with Jericho. You got to be able to make it up somewhere, and a lot of these newer people can't make it up what they can't keep up for the speed and the agility that Kenny has. They don't have the talent to keep up with them right now unless they just do the same rinse and repeat matches over and over again, which it's smart that they're not wanting to do that because that's made WWE so dull over the years where you get the same two people for months and months and months and months and months.
Well, another question then. In another devil's advocate situation, if we had not postponed Blood and Guts and we had Kenny Omega in Blood and Guts, would he have delivered one of those performances?
I believe he would have to. At that point, I think it's going to be one of those their bigger events since they're still trying to develop what's their big events. You'll see the people who can do these crazy moments are going to deliver on those crazy moments. I think they would have pulled out all the stops there to keep people tuning in and show that they're fresh and new and entertaining. Christopher, you look like you're contemplating something.
I am. It's just I'm worried. Like I'm honestly worried that there's something wrong with Kenny Omega. Like I'm not like obviously I'm not like yeah, but I hope he's okay. But at the same time, like he went 100 miles an hour to start AEW, and we made the argument. It's like, are they going to run out of steam? And I wonder if hopefully he's just pushing on the brakes a little bit because maybe they were going too fast and they realized that. And they're like, all right, let's slow it up. Let's take advantage of this time to bring up some of QT Marshall's training boys and give them some time. And I can have these little matches with them and throw them around the ring a little. But he's not. I mean, you mentioned Pac, and we never really got to see the Kenny Omega Pac match that we probably should see. Them go like an hour, and have an incredible match.
That'd be amazing. And they could do it. And they would not let up at all the whole time. They're both in amazing shape. They can go with anybody.
Unless there's something else up AEW's sleeve, which I would love to see. Like maybe they have something in the works with a big name coming over from New Japan or something that they're just waiting to just let Kenny and somebody just run it for a while. Just have somebody big come over and feud with Kenny for like 6 months and just do these incredible matches, which
But who? Unless they get some kind of working relationship, who is it going to be?
Well, I think they've worked on a working relationship with New Japan, and I think
it's been shot down so many times.
Well, yeah, but I want you to picture this thing where we have like, let's say a 2 to 3. Well, it have to be 3 because you have to have a rubber match, right? So let's say you have an AEW pay-per-view, a New Japan pay-per-view, and then a joint pay-per-view, and you go all out. So who do you bring to face Kenny Omega? You bring Okada. Okada comes, and Okada makes a big presence, and maybe you think he's acting like he's too cool, he's coasting out. You realize how good of a wrestler he is, though, right? Like on all fronts. Like he might be showing that he's too cool, specifically setting something up like that up. So, I mean, if you have something like, oh my gosh, it's been long enough that Kenny Omega Okada would just be I mean, the biggest thing
Incredible.
ever. And the fact that AEW could then secure that on one of their pay-per-views, again, you have to do it fair. Like, do either one joint pay-per-view that's got, a mixture of AEW talent versus New Japan talent, which would be amazing, or you have people from AEW invading New Japan, people from New Japan invading AEW, and then it comes to a head at a singular pay-per-view.
But I feel like if they're doing that invading angle, it would be the Bullet Club doing the invasion because that's kind of how they are. They're their
that's
own
fine.
little entity.
I mean, that's fine.
And having the new members come, I mean, other than AJ, the rest of them and Finn, you get Gallows and Anderson back. That could make sense. You could start showing them in the crowds and stuff like that, and then have the rest of them come in, and then you have the Elite retaliate, and that could set up whatever you want. And that payoff one, that third one where you said it has to be, one mixture pay-per-view would have to be in the Tokyo Dome because what other big event would they be able to do that in?
I mean, the way I look at it though is the reason that this is a no-fail plan is that if they were actually able to do it, how many, again, and I hate to always go back to when we were at the end of last year and we were talking about our favorite matches, we were all talking about New Japan matches. And when you look at the response that we were getting from people on Twitter where they had never even heard of these wrestlers or never even watched New Japan, like for AEW to do like a joint pay-per-view with New Japan, that's good for AEW. That's great for New Japan. It's way better for New Japan.
God, New Japan is so good.
They are. I would say they're the best, period. They've been the best for a long time.
Here's hoping. Here's hoping our conversations and our concerns are basically just them waiting for this to kind of settle and having this story just lined up and ready to roll. And that kind of brings me to what we were talking about. I don't know if it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, where we started talking about what we'd like to see on Dark Side of the Ring or similar shows to that. Wouldn't it be cool for them to talk? And I've seen this recently a little bit on social media, but I would like to hear and see more of what could have been, what storylines were scrapped for certain reasons, and especially right now through what we're going through, what could have been, what was supposed to happen at WrestleMania, what was supposed to happen at Double or Nothing, what it was lined up, because ultimately you have to completely change gears, and who knows if you're ever going to get back to that again. So it'd be really interesting to ask some of those questions or get some of that feedback from. You'll never get it from WWE until guys have written their books and stuff, but maybe from AEW, maybe they can, on Being the Elite, play little games and talk a little bit about what could have been instead of what we got. Because I'm pretty sure Double or Nothing is it scrapped completely now or just still in this postponed phase?
I'm not 100% sure, but it would be smart of them to put it in the postponed phase. Because why not? I mean, they're such a new company. They don't have to be set in their ways in regards to what pay-per-view is when and whatnot. So I would hope that it is in the postponed phase. Did you see it, by the way? Did you see your girl Priscilla Kelly was on a YouTube video with Brandy Rhodes?
Yeah, it was a Shots with Brandy. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think she like cooks.
Show?
Yeah, she like cooks and stuff like that.
Yeah, Priscilla was on there. They did they're doing some of these challenges, and it's like ring gear challenge or whatever, and she gets dressed real quick in her ring gear. So I watched that as well.
It's I don't know. People, I mean, some of these promotions, they're definitely mastered the art of social media and YouTube and stuff like that. It's fun to see.
I'm actually I'm a little disappointed in NWA through this period in time and the content that's come out. That luckily they, we did get a little bit of good content this week, but I feel like NWA is missing an opportunity to put out some interesting content that nobody else can do or nobody else would do. You know, the funny commercials that NWA does. I mean, they could literally, a lot of their wrestlers are, you know, friendly and hanging out. They could do little matches in their backyards and stuff like that. I think NWA doesn't need what WWE and AEW need in production quality. And I think they just could have done more during this period of time. And I'm a little disappointed in them, to be honest.
It's funny how much I go back to when you talk about this stuff, how much you go back to how cheesy NWA was and I don't like it and yada, yada, yada. Oh, how the tides have turned.
All he wants to talk about is how he was right. Like he gets right. He's right one time. And he wants to talk about it.
Hey, listen, when you're right one time in your life, you want people to know about it. I haven't heard much from Chuckles. Chuckles, what's our next topic? What's our next topic? Give us something.
Man, I don't know. You didn't put the what happened last week up in the thing. I have no idea what happened. I can't remember, man. That was like a week ago, bro. Shit.
It was a week ago.
Bro.
Well, fine. Let's talk about NXT then. Let's talk about a little bit of NXT because I was watching NXT. And let me tell you something. I have to eat my words a little bit because I was talking about how much I didn't want Gargano to be a heel. And then they put together one of my favorite, craziest vignettes ever where they have the cup in a case on the table. It was amazing. That was the most amazing bit ever. Like when I saw the cup in a case on the table as they're sitting there talking like a trophy, wonderful, 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 wonderful. The one thing that hasn't changed from the last episode of NXT to this one though, Karrion Kross is still a horrible name. It's still a horrible name.
I don't know, man. I agree but don't agree at the same time. Did you read his? He was the one that came up with the name.
Don't care. I said last week I wouldn't care.
And did you read why he chose the name?
Why did he choose the name, Chuck?
So, Tiro, Tiro, I think you know where I'm going with this. Did you read this article?
I did not. I have no idea where you're going.
Damn.
You're on your own, going in a direction that I have no clue.
I'm literally on an island. I'm on an island by myself. No, Karrion is like another name for like a dead carcass or something.
Yes.
And I think that was he had a whole backstory. Like,
how does Jimmy say yes? Wait, hold on. Jimmy's like yes, like he exactly knows that
I
word.
Understand.
Like it's in his vocabulary.
Wait a second. I understand what the word carrion is. Now he's spelling it with a K instead of a C. But
yes.
like a vulture is a carrion bird because it eats corpses. Correct?
That is correct.
There you go. So that's why I said yes.
I find it odd that it was very matter of fact that Carrion was whatever. I just impressed by Jimmy's vocabulary.
Anyway,
continue off the rails.
Continuing off the rails here. Reading the article, I was actually like, you know what? I mean, I can see, because WWE is a bunch of peas and they don't want to use the word killer. Yeah, I said peas. Yeah.
I think they should call him the Carrion Experience.
No. Oh my God, Jimmy.
We can do Viking karaoke with the Carrion Experience.
Oh my Lord. That's terrible.
That was so bad.
Anyway, I actually don't mind the name. I don't mind it. I don't love it. I don't mind it.
Well, okay. Well, that being said, I skipped over the most important story on NXT because it's something that I believe it was Christopher talked about. I don't know if he talked about it on the podcast or if he just talked about it in general, but he talked about the use of real life as a story in WWE. And that's what we got with Drake Maverick. Now, it was... Here's my thing. If they don't hire him back, if he's not already like, hey, they have not already told him, hey, we really, like, you really hit an emotional chord, we're going to hire you back or whatever. If that doesn't happen, then I really, really hate this angle a lot. Because, I mean, he's like really playing it up, and then he loses. And then there's that really weird thing where, and what's the name of the guy he even lost to?
Atlas.
Yeah,
Tony Atlas.
Tony Atlas. And then they're like interviewing Tony Atlas, and it's this like really weird interview where it's like, okay, usually in this spot I'd be talking a bunch of crap about the guy I just beat, but I'm being nice because in real life he's gotten let go, and it was just a little bit awkward. So if nothing comes of this angle, if he does not keep his job after this, then shame on them for doing this. Shame on them.
He's got nothing in place. There's reports out right now that basically they can use these wrestlers for their, next whatever days until their contracts run up. So he's lucky enough, quote unquote, lucky enough that he's able to wrestle these 3 matches and not just have to go into hibernation essentially until he's allowed to go someplace else.
I don't know that that's a good thing.
He's been hanging out with EC3 a lot. EC3's been a social media maniac right now, trying to build a character during this 90-day period. I believe it's a 90-day non-compete. And he is hanging out with EC3, and so far there is no sign of a contract in Drake Maverick's future. But WWE is like, well, we get to use him. We're going to use the angle because they decided to put these really passionate videos out, and it's going to make for good ratings and good TV. So we're going to expose that and use it until you're gone.
Well, if that's the case, then you're trash, WWE.
EC3 is a great talent that I'm very upset they wasted so much on. I wish they would have left him in NXT. If they don't bring him back doing something after this, which a lot of this, like him and Drake Maverick themselves, with the emotional stuff they're putting out there, it would be amazing to bring them back at some kind of like revenge angle kind of thing. It'd be great. And EC3's got talent. He's built like a freaking house too. So let him do something. If not, I do think at least EC3 will go to AEW. Well, he'll be able to have some kind of story that they can do something with.
Why not go to Impact, man? He would rule Impact from day one.
He's better off just going to Impact. Just go back to TNA and just run it.
But
I mean, Moose is there, Shamrock's there, Callahan's there. They could all have good feuds. I mean, he could even beat the crap out of Tessa Blanchard. It'd be entertaining. I mean, just be heel EC3, which is the cocky asshole that he was when he first came into TNA.
Which was an amazing role for him. He plays a wonderful heel. It's kind of like The Miz. They work better as a heel. When he first came in NXT, that whole 1%, it makes sense. Let him run with it.
I want to go back to Jimmy, your infatuation with a cup on a table. But not only that, like the gimmick is like, did you really enjoy the vignette and the promo?
I think I did. I was it was just weird. It was bizarre.
Yeah,
and
that was the word for it.
And I think the thing was, for me personally, the only way it was going to get over for me is if it was very weird. And it was very weird, and I was like, man, I can't believe I'm liking this right now, because I was so against it. But that being said, you know, do still at this point, do I want them to both be heels? No, I don't. I don't like Candice LeRae as a heel, even though she was half of the reason, though. Well, obviously, because there's 2 of them, so it's more than half. She's more than half of the reason. I'm trying to emphasize she was a big reason that I really liked that vignette. But But that being said, do I want that in the future? Do I want that to maintain? I don't know that I do. I mean, what is your end game? What is the end game of Johnny Gargano at this point? Where is he going? Who is he facing? Right now, the way that people are pairing up, like the only thing that makes sense is for him to go against Keith Lee, because Keith Lee's kind of over. Maybe.
Yeah, and I think we kind of talked through that last week, but here's my thing. There's too many heels. Like, you have no faces and you're turning your faces into heels. And it's a situation where, you know, you have Champa, who's a great heel, and you turn him into a face. You have Gargano, who I think is a great baby face, and you turn him into a heel, and you give him a character that's very similar to what Cross's character is. Just this dark, weird, brooding character. You know, Gargano is just going to be a bad guy. You already have a bad guy in Cross coming up. You already have a bad guy in the Prince, Finn Balor. Essentially, you already have all of the Undisputed Era as bad guys. You already have the Velveteen Dream, which was he's still a bad guy to me. He's really not a face. I mean, he gets a lot of crowd pop, but I feel like Keith Lee might be one of the few faces on NXT right now. Like, what's another face on NXT besides Keith Lee that's a true face, a true baby face?
Bro.
And he's stuck in a tag team. You know, you got
It
a
was
guy.
so weird. He was so weird this past week.
When is he
well,
His
not, though?
character
That's his
is so weird.
personality.
It's fun. It's funny though, but he's so weird, man.
But he plays it well. Like his weird gimmick, his I'm stoned gimmick. It's funny. He plays it well, and he can play it with anybody. He's proving that. I mean, he's proven that with the tag team that he's in, with the sub that he's wrestling with. He's done, you know, the Bobby Fish stuff that's hilarious. I don't think there's enough faces in NXT right now, and you're actually getting rid of faces and turning people heel. So unless they have a bunch of people lined up to come into NXT, which, you know, there's always that invasion angle.
So you got
that they try to
Ciampa,
pull.
you got Tegan Knox. I mean, Tegan
It
Knox is a
could be
true
some of
face.
these releases might be being picked up by NXT. You know, that could just be their way of moving people down.
I'd be okay with that, especially a lot of the guy. Well, you didn't have to release him this way. I mean, you didn't have to do it that way. You could have just sent
No.
him down.
Yeah.
But I think the to Jimmy, to your point, you named Tegan Knox, and you know you could name Shotzi Blackheart. There's the women I think are okay. There's enough women down there, and they're split off pretty good. It's the men to me that I don't see the face heel split. I see the lines very blurred, and now you have Finn Balor, who's kind of came in as a heel, and now he's shifting back towards a face again. And there's no consistency with how long people are staying on one side of the fence, and I think that's a trend for NXT, and it sometimes works, but right now I'm having issues with it because this is the time that you can build promos and build storylines and have long stories to go throughout the year. And instead, we're jumping around instead of letting things kind of drag out, which is actually what I commend AEW for. Things are dragging out. The stories are not just quickly ending. You know, Cody and Lance Archer they're not going to touch each other for weeks, right? But you ultimately know that's the direction it's going. And that started back when Jake the Snake came out, which was over a month ago now, right?
It was a while
Yeah,
ago.
roughly, yeah.
Right. So that's great. That's good, long storytelling that is eventually going to have an end. And again, they're using this time to drag it out a little bit, but they're also building that story. Obviously, he's going to end up beating the crap out of Dustin Rhodes next week or this week. Is it this week? I think it's this week. So
think it's
he's going
this
to beat the
week.
crap out of Dustin, and that's obviously going to lead to the Cody and him in the finals.
They love to do that, though. That's what is actually a little complaint. They always love to get the brother involved to like juice up the storyline. They've done it like every single time. But I don't know, man. I mean, so NXT was okay. I can't say I'm a huge fan of what they're doing with their women wrestling right now. Like that tag match, I care so little about what is Raquel Gonzalez or whatever. She's not a very good wrestler.
No, but neither is Tamina, and she's about to get a title shot. Neither is, I was going to say something, but I can't. Because...
Don't say it. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about that right now. Because Christopher thought it would be a good idea to put a poll up. And that poll was basically asking whether Britt Baker was working or not. Now, do you have the final tally of that poll? Can you pull that up for us? He's pulling it up right now, ladies and gentlemen. I just remember...
Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up. Hold on.
It's just a sad day for Christopher. Because I don't think
I love the way you say it.
It didn't go well. What you mean, Christopher?
Yeah.
Yeah. The trick is saying full sentences, like I was taking a walk at the park and I saw Christopher at the hot dog stand. I was wondering why Christopher was at the hot dog stand. So I said, "Hello, Christopher. Why are you at the hot dog stand?" And Christopher said, "I'm getting a hot dog."
It's gonna be an hour and 40 minutes of you just saying my name.
What is the poll? What does the poll look like?
So the question was, and I posed it out there because we talked about it on the podcast, and I just really couldn't understand what people were thinking about Britt Baker. Is Britt Baker working? That's the general question that was out there, and you had three choices. Yes, she's my role model. No, she's a dentist. Or you mean Chelsea Green? Which I thought was a really good answer and a really good response.
But basically two of these were negative. Highly slanted to the one positive. Yes.
2 negatives to 1 positive. And surprisingly enough, to my dismay, the 2 lost to the 1, and the final results were a 58.2%. Yes, she's my role model. 22.8%. You mean Chelsea Green? And 19%. No, she's a dentist. So, ladies and gentlemen, all 4 of our listeners, Britt Baker is working, and she's my role model.
And yes, and to celebrate this, we are going to get Christopher a Britt Baker t-shirt that he will wear and cherish always.
Yes, I will wear it. That's about it, really. But I got into
other gimmick on one shirt.
Oh man, all the gimmicks, yeah. But this is the thing, man. Like, I got into some conversations with a few people out there, and it was interesting. Like, people really just think she's working. And you know what? We have this conversation, and I argue with Jimmy a lot about it. Just because we don't think something's working doesn't mean it's not working.
Yep.
We have our side and our opinions of it, but sometimes we're not in the masses. We're in the minority. And I was in the minority, and now apparently I'm in the masses because now I'm a big Britt Baker fan. And
hey, join the club.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm a Sasha Banks fan, so it's okay. Join the club.
What's
that? But Sasha Banks can wrestle.
What's that, Chuckles?
I want to know
she
what
can take
evidence.
a bump.
I want to know what evidence there is that says that Britt Baker is working.
The people.
What is the evidence?
People
Twitter.
determine whether she's working.
People.
It's on the internet.
Yeah,
it's on the internet.
People determine.
That's bullshit.
The crowds determine whether something is working.
I can find anything on the internet. That's bullshit. it's not true. It's not working. I don't care what the stupid idiot people who voted positive for her on the damn poll say. It's not working. Jimmy, it's not working. Jimmy, it's not working. One more time. Jimmy, it's not working.
How many votes was it again?
I mean, before he put the poll up, I was kind of like, guys, it might be working. So I don't know.
Yeah, we didn't quite get to 100 votes. It was.
Did you guys all vote? Did you guys all vote on the poll?
No.
I voted. I voted for, what do you mean, Chelsea Green?
What did you vote for? I know you voted, Chris.
I forget, but it was one of the two. Like it was either no, she's a dentist, or you mean Chelsea Green. It was probably you mean Chelsea Green, because I was pretty proud of that one.
So here's the problem, though. If you remove us, it gets even worse for you guys, because you're taking 2 out of the negatives and only 1 out of the positive.
What you're only telling me what I already know. I lost.
I know.
I lost.
I hear
lost.
I hear
I
plenty
lost
of
twice because I lost the poll and I'm getting a t-shirt. So I lost twice.
I hear plenty of positive buzz about her, so I'm kind of in between. I'm kind of in between.
I wasn't hearing it. I wasn't hearing it over week to week. I wasn't hearing it or seeing it on social media. And until I put the poll out there, people really didn't come to her defense in any of my tweets on social media or any of my conversations or comments out there. But like true AEW fans, they came to the defense of their wrestler and their role model and my role model and Britt Baker. So I will not talk negatively about Britt Baker until she does something really bad where I've given the okay to give my opinion about Britt Baker.
So the next time she's on TV,
it'll be Thursday, then I'll be able to talk about Britt Baker again.
So hold on. I got a joke. Knock knock.
Who you're supposed to say? Who's there?
Britt Baker.
Britt Baker who?
Exactly.
Okay.
Boo.
Yeah.
I didn't care for that.
I think everybody knows who Britt Baker is.
Yeah, Chelsea Green.
There you go. That would have been better. You should have said Chelsea Green.
Well, it's
my real friends call me Chelsea.
Goes back into the category of agree to disagree type stuff. I mean, we're not always going to see eye to eye on everything.
Hey, I'm just glad people came out and voted and were interested, and I got a lot more followers now, and I think most of them are just there to tell me I'm wrong. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, but
we all are.
The AEW fans, they're there to tell you you're wrong when you preach too much positivity about WWE.
Yeah, I racked up about 150 more followers since our last podcast, and I'm pretty sure 79 of them are probably from the poll.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things, and I'm kind of in between those people and you guys in regards to it works sometimes, it doesn't work sometimes. Again, I'm here for that Shivani interference. I am here for that Tony Schiavone interference. It's going to be so sweet. But, past that, do I care about Britt Baker? She's just part of AEW. And not part of the good part. But, is she working on the part of it? I guess. So, what else we got, boys? Anything happen on... I don't really watch main card WWE anymore, so you guys will have to tell me if anything happened on SmackDown or Raw last week. I don't really know. Anything interesting?
The Miz tried to do a kick up and he didn't get all the way up.
And he was proud of it.
That was great.
And he played it off well, basically?
Yeah. No, he didn't play it off well. He tried to do a kick up and he messed up, but obviously they made sure to put it on social media. I mean, they were all getting on him. So that's always funny. Anytime you can make social media as a fool, that's helpful for a heel. But they're obviously building towards Miz and Morrison feuding. We've talked about this. We kind of even talked about it before Morrison showed up on WWE. But it seems like what they're going to do is make Morrison angry at the Miz for all the losses they've been handed lately, and that'll end up putting them into a feud. Now, does that make Miz a face again? Is my question. Do we now have to deal with Miz the face versus Morrison the heel?
I don't
I
know.
think you make Morrison a face.
Miz has got the
Miz is
show though,
better as a
right?
heel.
Doesn't Miz still have his show?
He does, and are they in? You know what? It'd be interesting to see when new episodes come out because they're pretty good about getting Miz back to being a good guy whenever the new episodes are coming out.
I don't know. I mean, I'm all about the Miz being heel. I think he's proven himself to be a great heel, so why not let him roll with it?
But wouldn't you say the same thing about Morrison? Like, I feel like Morrison's a good heel too. Like, they're both
Yeah, but
good heels.
hasn't Miz been like the best heel that WWE's ever had? I mean, I'm more speaking almost your words to a certain extent.
He is one of the best heels they've had. Now, he is not the best heel they've had, but he is one of the best heels they've had in a long time, and he plays the heel really well. That doesn't necessarily mean that Morrison isn't a good heel. It just means that I see Miz as a heel more than as a face. And I can say the same thing about Morrison. I see Morrison as a heel more than a face. I think they played the heels really well when they just both came back here as a tag team. Can you see either one of them really playing a strong enough face to the other one's heel to put the other one over?
I think Morrison has been away such a long time that some of the newer people might not know his history of being a heel. So you can do a small run with him as a face to get them split up to let him do his own solo stuff.
How long is the program though? See, because that's the trick, right? If the program is long, then one of them has to be a heel and one of them has to be a face. If it's short, they can both be a heel and fight each other both as heels.
I think it goes at least 2 months. I don't think it's a quick right away thing.
Well, that's just a shame because you know what? I don't know that Morrison and Miz are going to have great matches. Whereas Morrison can have great matches with almost anybody.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say if they don't have a great match, it's not gonna be on Morrison. And I love the Miz. The Miz's works great.
But he's had to work hard to get where he is. And I think you can see that based on the Miz, back in the younger years versus now. He's not like a super spectacular wrestler. He's always had a good character. He's always had the mic skills. But does he knock it out of the park all the time when it comes to the wrestling? Not really.
So I have breaking news. What are the noises for breaking news? It's like breaking news. There you go. I knew Chuck would come through.
Chuckles.
Thank you, Chuck. So our favorite wrestler, the guy who's always wrestling, literally every episode and that he could possibly get on, he will wrestle. Akira Tozawa had another match on Monday Night Raw tonight.
Don't you hinder on gender. Don't you hinder on gender.
But yes, he did lose to Jinder Mahal returning. But I just want to point out that Akira Tozawa, as we've talked about, that dude has wrestled. If you go back, I think he may have wrestled more shows this year than anybody else on the roster. And he's also taken more black masses than anybody else on the roster too. But
so you say Jinder's on Raw?
Yeah, he just came back tonight to Raw.
Back on Raw. That's the breaking news.
Let's make another story. Let's make another story where we play off of people getting fired again, and we have McIntyre and Jinder Mahal basically bring
Heath Slater back.
Bring him back, and then security tries to take him out, and McIntyre and Jinder Mahal beat the crap out of security and stuff like that. I mean, that's just the very rough draft of it, but I'm interested. I'm interested in this. Let's flesh that out.
Okay.
But
So in
again, they
other
need
real
to sign
news-
them. Again, they need to sign them again.
And other real news, other than Ginger returning the night, they are burying Ruby Riott. She lost again to Liv Morgan, and apparently in kind of a squash match.
I thought Liv Morgan gets squashed.
Liv is getting a push, and she
Yeah.
deserves it. She really deserves it. And that was that the match from last Monday where Liv did that finishing move on the ropes?
She
Yeah,
did
well,
it
she
again
again
tonight.
Yeah.
tonight. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Ruby went
Dude,
for a move
she's-
and she dropped her on her face and then hit the move again and it was over. And I'm sorry, I get Liv needs a push. I like Ruby Riott. I like her style, I like how she does in the ring.
agree.
I see her
I
getting
agree.
beat, but it's like they're punishing her for having both her shoulders worked on over the last year. It's not. I mean, they're wasting talent. They have tons of other people they could be squashing, and they're wasting talent. They're wasting somebody who can do stuff in the ring. They're squashing where Nia Jax goes in there and sits on anybody.
They fired people and they're still wasting talent. How is that possible?
It's crazy.
Mm.
I will make the argument that every win that Liv gets over Ruby Riott makes Liv look that much better. And I do think Liv needs a push. I do think Liv needs that extra push to the moon because yeah, people like her, but I don't think people respect her as much as they should as a wrestler because she's been the one taking the majority of the bumps on the Riot Squad in the past. Now she wasn't in the matches. Ruby was the one carrying them for full matches. But as far as biggest bump of the night, it was always Liv. And now Liv's actually, getting it back a little bit and getting a push. But I don't disagree. Ruby Riott's great, and I think she deserves everything too. But it's hard to push both people at the same time. You have to kind of pick one at this moment and shoot them to the moon. Rocket strap, as the Edge and Christian show would say.
That would reek of awesomeness.
I miss them.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's good to see Liv doing well. It's good to see I wasn't gonna say it's good to see Jinder. It's good to see Tozawa get more matches.
Ginger's got he's got a buzzed head. He looked good. He didn't look all roided out like before, but he looked strong.
Has his acne cleared up?
Yeah, like I said, he doesn't look all crazy veiny. He looks kind of
That's good.
yeah. I think that from what he acts like so far, they're going to use him as a heel again. So
One of Nakamura's very favorite wrestlers.
the modern day Maharaja.
I still don't think he's found that shirt. He packed it up in one of his garbage bags when he moved and lost it.
You mean he threw it in the garbage and lost it?
That's
No.
possible.
That's the funny part, Steven. No, I don't mean he threw it in the garbage. I mean he packed garbage bags and moved them and lost it.
Oh,
But that's a story for another podcast.
Yes. True life stories of bald monkeys.
But I don't know what else happened on Raw or SmackDown. I think that was yeah. Is McIntyre already old? Like, is McIntyre already like worn out with this 3, 2, 1 Claymore nonsense that he's doing? Like, is anybody else already?
The countdown's dumb, and I think they did that because they were getting ready for him versus Seth, with the whole Seth doing the stomp and the burn it down. And the whole thing is dumb. But it's like, who else are they going to put him against right now? Because KO's kind of a face, which is stupid that Drew's a face because Drew is such a better heel.
I don't know. I like no. I really like Drew McIntyre as a face. I liked him when he was on NXT as a face. I think he was solid at it. I thought it was a really good character to be like, I've worked really hard to get back into WWE character. Now that's changed a little bit because he's been in WWE now from his return a little bit longer, but I still think he works as a face. I don't think that he works.
I didn't say he didn't.
I don't think
Never
he
once
works.
said he didn't work as a face.
But I don't think he works better.
I like
as a
him better
heel.
as a heel. If they could do the monster heel gimmick with him so easy. If they would do it.
I think you have to look though at all these wrestlers And when the problem is when 80% of the time we say, well, that guy's a better heel than he is a face. If you have somebody that works as a face, you got to stick them as a face because they are a dying breed. So if he works as a face, then he needs to stay that way. If Roman Reigns works as a face, I'm sorry to say it, he needs to stay that way because it's just, you know, who else are you going to? Who's a face? Who's going to work as a face? Who could you turn into a face? You could turn Cesaro into a face. I guarantee you could. But who else? They got Cesaro. Daniel Bryan. You know, they've got your typicals, Kofi Kingston's, but then who else? You know, everybody's always like, oh, we really want to see the Big E heel turn. It's like, so you're always wanting to see everybody heel turn, but we can't have that many heels at the same time. So
why not? NXT does it.
NXT's got all the heels.
But we were just talking about that's not a good thing. So
no, it's not. And it's the Stone Cold syndrome. Everybody wants to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. And when did Stone Cold really like make himself? Is when he became the badass, right? The wise ass, badass, yelling things, you know, just being a SOB, right? And now everybody wants to be that character. So now everybody's leaning towards being a heel. You know, whatever happened to the face, whatever. And I'm not saying that he is a top guy because we talk about this in the podcast, but what happened to the Hulk Hogan Real American, you know, face? Like the guy who's the ultimate good guy.
John Cena. He was the last one we had.
John Cena. But like but you almost need a stance. Like Hulk Hogan had like a lot of real world things going on that he was feeding off of. Like he was going up against, you know, Russia. He was going up against Sergeant Slaughter. He was going up against these bigger guys. You know, he was able to slam Andre the Giant. Everything was like almost like whether, you know, Hulk was always big, but it was always like he was somehow the underdog, even though he was huge, right? And there's no face like that in the industry right now. There's no really big guy that you feel like he doesn't have a shot to win. And I don't know how you recreate that, especially when everybody's a bad guy. Like you need some kind of line to separate the people so that you can have that good guy stand out. And they kind of try to do that with Roman Reigns, but
they also tried to do it with Kofi Kingston.
Wow.
And then they threw that away for Brock Lesnar, and that's what they do is they try to build somebody, they try to have that momentum, and then they want to bring Brock back, so they use Brock to just stomp on that person, and it throws it all away. I feel like they tried to do that with Seth when he beat Brock those 2 times, and then all of a sudden they decided, no, we want him to be a bad guy. And it's like they can't make up their minds and stick with the character.
But minus Hogan. Quite frankly, minus Hogan, you think of some of the biggest wrestlers that WWE has ever had, and they all kind of play the line. They're all like, one day they're a heel and one day they're a face. Shawn Michaels, you never knew what he was. Triple H, you never knew what he was. Undertaker, you never really knew what he was. The Rock, good gracious, The Rock, you never really knew what he was. Like all those guys were.
Okay, the ones you just listed though, like their charisma, the way they could carry themselves, showed that they didn't have to be one or the other.
Well,
Hogan was, I mean, he had the pop culture thing for him, but nobody cared. And when he finally went heel in WCW, it was wonderful. It was different. It was something new. It was fresh. But it just, I don't know. I think some people, they just need that line.
I always look at it as like, you know, you want to know who like the next Stone Cold was going to be. Well, it already happened, and it happened at the exact same time that Stone Cold was there. It was The Rock. And who was the next Rock? It was Stone Cold. They were each other. They were like the same kind of force, just a little bit different style of the same thing. It's, you go years and years and years without finding wrestlers like that. That's what made that era so special, that you had so many of those guys that were so good at that. And nowadays, you have people that are that charismatic and that are that good that maybe don't even wrestle for a big promotion, or maybe they don't even wrestle for a promotion at all and they're independents and stuff like that, and just haven't gotten the time to show that they can do that stuff. And sadly, in the case of WWE, it's very difficult for guys to work into that groove because Vince McMahon literally thinks nobody in this new generation has star power at all. And that's why he's always jacking with storylines.
Oh, that's some good shit.
I actually, as you were kind of going through that, I actually think Cody might be the closest guy in the industry right now to that pure face.
Sure.
But he leans a little bit more towards his dad. Like Cody really is his dad, Dusty Rhodes. Like think about the character that Dusty Rhodes was back in the day. You know, everybody was rooting for him, yet he didn't always win. You know, everybody was rooting for him, but he wasn't the most, you know, most over guy because he wasn't the most muscular guy. He wasn't the most athletic guy, but he was a guy that everybody thought they could relate to. And I feel like that's where Cody's, I think that's where Cody's going right now with his character, which is not the same that he did on the independents, right? Cody in AEW, after he beat Dustin, he really might be the biggest face we have in professional wrestling right now. It's hard to say that anybody else is a bigger good guy than he is. As I think about it, I can't think of anybody really on all the promotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I don't know, man. I think you're dead on with the Cody comparison. You know, it's interesting because as I think we talked about Kenny Omega and we talk about Cody, and I compare those guys to like a Seth Rollins, and the more I watch Seth Rollins, the more I think he's missing something. And I don't know if that's just the nature of the storyline or the story that he's in, or the fact that he's just been around a long time and people are getting tired of him. But I feel like Seth Rollins is missing something. I don't know.
Yeah. I totally agree. You know, he had everything going for him as a heel. I think Seth Rollins, the heel, the first iteration when he turned on the Shield, was the best version of Seth Rollins we've seen as far as character goes.
Yeah.
Now, Seth Rollins as a face going up against Triple H, coming back from the knee injury, that was the best version of Seth Rollins, the face we've ever seen. Those are the two best Seth Rollins we could ever hope for. So here's the issue. You can't get that Seth Rollins face back again. You can't, because he would have to literally get injured again and have another guy basically try to take him down who's screwed him in the past, blah, 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 blah. There's too much there. You can't get that back. You can get Seth Rollins, the heel, back, and that's what they're attempting to do right now. And they're close, but to your point, it's not quite there. It's just missing one little piece of the puzzle that he had back then when he turned on the Shield, and it might just be that he didn't turn on anybody essentially when he went heel. Now he just turned on us, and ultimately, who cares? Like, I don't think we care as much as we did in the past as when wrestlers would turn on us and turn their backs on us, right? When wrestlers would say, screw you, you suck, like in the past, we'd be like, oh, you're a heel now. Yeah, we hate you. Now it's like, no, you got to have more layers to that, man. You can't just say you suck and then we're going to hate you. You say you suck to us and we'll cheer you probably, right? Like that's what's been going on most of the time. Yeah, we suck. Yeah. Like they need to figure out a way to have Seth turn on somebody. And I think they missed that opportunity. I think that's why he's really just not quite working all the way yet.
You guys think about Dexter Lumis?
He's weird.
In a good way or a bad way?
Both.
I'm going to say a good way just by what the length of time it's taking you to even answer.
And Chuck and I talked about this briefly about like just what is he doing? Like he's just creepy and just weird.
Yeah.
His character's there. Like I like his character. It's different. It's weird. But I don't know that he can wrestle. And that's where I'm concerned. He's not quite big enough a guy to be just a character. You gotta have something else because otherwise you're just another
Role
bigger
model.
guy, right? He's
Just
got
another role model.
Another role model. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, Dexter Loomis shirt. All right, great.
I don't know. Every single time I've been watching NXT and he's been on there, and like Sarah just reacts all like creeped out by him, and every single time I'm just like, man, that character's working. It's just working really well. I dig that.
He doesn't blink. I'm impressed by the fact that he does not blink. Like
I wonder if the camera guys give him cues, so he's like, "Oh, thank God, I can blink again. Let me get a couple blinks in before they turn back to me."
Sitting there blinking like crazy.
Oh my gosh, you know it. Yeah, I don't know, man. Well, anything else of note? Did you guys watch The Dark Side of the Ring? The assassination of Dino Bravo?
No, I haven't watched it yet.
Okay. Well, gosh.
Chuck and Jimmy.
What did
the floor is yours. Jimmy, you watched it too?
I did. I watched it last night. What did you think, Chuckles?
I thought it was good. I always like these ones that are more like the like criminal based kind of things. Like there's a whole lot of loose ends that aren't tied up and whatnot. And I mean, one thing I didn't realize was how big Dino Bravo was.
Yeah.
As a wrestler in Canada, in Quebec. So that was interesting, and watching some of the WWF footage, I was like, shit, I remember like this match. I remember watching this like when it was happening and everything. But yeah, I mean, just crazy how, one or two choices could just lead you down an entirely different path in your life, and then like it totally take your life away. I mean, that's essentially like what it came down to with Dino Bravo, I think.
Yeah.
It took a wrestling documentary to let you realize that.
I think one of the more interesting things for me, just a little tidbit in there, was when WWE thought, well, we want to get in the Montreal area and we want to put on a show there, and we want to have our people wrestle, some local people. And so they thought, well, why don't we have Hulk Hogan wrestle Dino Bravo? And then they canceled it because they were worried that everybody in Montreal was so about Dino Bravo that nobody was going to root for Hulk Hogan, which, typical WWF thing at the time.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it just got squashed. And I mean, Dino came in and they like changed up his whole character, and they dyed his hair and everything. And it just like kind of, he was always in like big matches against like a lot of big names. And like for him, I feel like he just didn't want to play second fiddle in WWF.
And I also think the general thing for me, to play off of what you said you like, what I like is when we talk about wrestlers that, quite frankly, I've got no idea who you're talking about. So that was like in the first season when they talked about what was his name? Gorgeous Gino.
Gorgeous Gino.
I've like, who the heck is Gorgeous Gino? I've got no, like, because all the other episodes I knew the name Bruiser Brody and I knew about the Von Erichs and stuff like that. So we were talking about wrestlers that, while I didn't have a huge knowledge base of them, I did know of them. Dino Bravo. I was like, who the heck is Dino Bravo? And you know, it's an interesting story, like you said, about life choices, and sometimes making the wrong choices gets you shot in the head 7 times and shot in the body 4 times, and an apparent assassination. So pretty wild.
In your own house with like no apparent break-in, and like who knows who did it?
Yeah.
I mean, like when they asked his wife about like what happened, she like couldn't even talk about it. She's like, I basically was like, I can't even go down that road to talk about it right now or ever.
Yeah. And maybe that's, maybe it's fear, because she talks about the people that he used to bring home and, them being not really friends, more work acquaintances that were a little bit sketchy. So very, it's one of like the, probably going to be one of the more underrated episodes, I think, of the show, but I enjoyed it as well. And boys, watch it like me and Chuckles did. I'm sure you guys will be all over it. I look forward to the next couple episodes, man.
Yeah.
Because we still got a few episodes to go. How many episodes? It was like 8 or 12 or something, or 10. I don't know. Some number of episodes.
Owen Hart, man.
It's the last one. That one's gonna be rough.
Yeah, I think there's 12 in this one. The next one is about like, just like you said, Jimmy, somebody that I don't even recognize the name.
Yeah. So I'll look forward to that. That's like that'll be tomorrow night actually. So that'll be good stuff. Well, boys, we're getting close to the end here. You got any last minute topics to talk about? Any breaking news updates? Really?
Briscoe was released.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah, they announced it about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago.
Man.
Yeah.
What about you, Christopher?
No, I'll just say that all of our avid listeners, all 3 of you, we're working on something new to bring to the podcast. I'm not going to guarantee anything yet because I don't want to be a liar. I'm already a Britt Baker fan, so I can't be a liar and a Britt Baker fan.
That wouldn't be very good, more.
But keep an eye on the social media posts. We're gonna hopefully have something new coming to the podcast soon, and we might need some input from the listeners. And looking forward to more wrestling in quarantine, which wasn't too bad this week. I'm going to be honest. I actually enjoyed watching wrestling this week, so it was a up week compared to the kind of off week it was 2 weeks ago.
And please, everybody at home, make sure you clean your cups before you put them in the trophy cases. Clean cups are good. All right, well, let's do a quick hot take roundtable. Hot takes, anybody? Hot takes. Get your hot takes here. Hot takes here. Hot takes.
I got one. I hated the Triple H thing on SmackDown on Friday. Hated it.
Can somebody explain it to me? Because I did not watch.
I saw him throwing his hands up in the air and whatnot.
I don't understand how you didn't like that. Like they bring Triple H out, and basically it's like celebrating, what is it, 25 years?
25 years.
Okay. So he comes out. the first thing they do, which is already
Was
made me
awesome.
laugh, was he
Was
walks
awesome.
around. He's got his bottle
It was
of water.
great.
He walks around the side of the ring, and somebody just takes it from him as he's about to like take a sip of it to go do his spit thing. And he kind of
was
looks
great.
around and he's like, "Oh man, you can't be spitting water right now. You crazy, man." So he gets in the ring and he starts talking, and HBK comes out. And of course, HBK is going to rib him. So HBK is out just ribbing him, just talking about how he's terrible and how he
That's
lost
good
so many
too.
matches and what his record was. And then he was also talking about how much fun they had before Stephanie. What was the word he used about Stephanie? No fun.
No fun.
It was no fun. And then all of a sudden, Triple H's phone rings. Triple H picks up his phone, and it's Stephanie, but it's not just Stephanie on the phone, it's Stephanie on video. And they actually play either live or not. They play Stephanie basically, saying, I could see him, and HBK's making faces in the background. She's like, I'm watching on live TV. I can see him making faces. And she goes, "You tell that lazy-eyed," and I lost it at that point. I don't even hear what the rest she said was. So calling Shawn Michaels lazy-eyed, and again, it was funny. And
That was
then
good. That was
Ric
good.
Flair
I'm in
calls, and
agreement.
he's got Ric Flair on video, and Ric Flair's saying, "I love you, man." And Ric Flair actually starts to tear up a little bit, hangs up the phone, but then he calls back, and this is the weird cut they did, but I was okay with it. So Ric Flair calls back, and all you hear is crying, and they go to commercial. And when they come back from commercial, HBK basically is like, "Did Ric Flair just call back to cry?" And he's like, "Yeah, he just called back to cry." So again, all of that's great, right? So I don't understand where it goes wrong for Chuck, but I guess, Chuck,
As
this is where it
soon
goes
as
wrong.
Vince McMahon comes out, it just goes horribly wrong, off the tracks. Like, I wanted to stab my eyes out when that whole thing, because like I'm telling you,
Damn.
if there was a crowd there and Vince McMahon came out, they would all like, do what they normally do for McMahon. But I have a feeling with what he was saying, like it would just be crickets. And you want to know what? That's how they ended. That the whole entire thing was them turning the lights off and there were just crickets. But that whole
You're shutting it
interchange
down.
with McMahon at the end just did not work at all for me.
Well,
Hot takes.
It was good. It was really good.
That's why it's a hot
So,
take. It doesn't need to
Jimmy,
be popular.
I know, but Jimmy, go back and watch it, because Vince comes out and he apologizes for Bailey's "This Is Your Life." He says that wasn't her fault. He apologizes for the Katie Vick bit.
Oh,
And if anybody remembers the Katie Vick bit,
oh yeah,
funeral home.
Forget it. If you remember
Triple
it,
H.
forget it.
So he apologizes for those two things. I mean, it was really good, and I thought it was really entertaining. Yes, Jimmy, you would have loved this. He talked about the gobbledygooker.
He did.
That was the part that I thought was weird. Actually,
he better not have
that didn't
apologized
flow.
about him, though. He better not have apologized about the gobbledygooker.
He didn't really apologize. He didn't really say anything about the gobbledygooker. He just mentioned it.
Oh,
It was the way he led into the gobbledygooker, led into Katie Vick, led into the Bailey "This Is Your Life," led into "This is terrible. I'm shutting this down. Turn everything off." They turn all the lights off. Crickets. And the SmackDown ends with Shawn Michaels saying, "Story of your career, man. Story of your career."
wow.
It was a great bit. I don't know what
I
Chuck's
love Shawn
talking about.
Michaels.
So my hot take is that Chuck's hot take is full of crap. So hot take.
That's not your
That's
hot
my hot
take.
take.
That's not your
That's
hot
it.
take.
Hot take.
All right, hot take. Get your hot takes here. Steven, Chris, got a hot take for us?
Steven's
It was a
just
decent
saying
week.
no.
It was a decent week. No, I don't have nothing bad that jumps out, at least. Nothing new that jumps out, at least.
Velveteen Dream has jumped the shark.
How so?
He might be in some trouble. And we won't go into that because that's a whole nother conversation of not knowing what's true or not. But I just feel like Velveteen has missed his opportunity to be as over as he was. Velveteen's character has actually gotten a bit stale through this quarantine period. And him doing the ravishing Rick Rude gimmick was great when it first was going on, but I am not in on Velveteen anymore. Like I even this is beyond what's going on outside of the ring. This is just watching on TV Velveteen come back. I wasn't impressed by it. I didn't think it was done right. I don't think his mic skills are improving. I think they're actually deteriorating. Some of his promos are just weird. They're short and he's snapping his fingers with the music turning off, and I I don't know. I'm not into the Velveteen Dream anymore when I was on board with him 6 months ago. So, I think he's kind of over, and not the pun that he is good.
Well, Steven, you got anything for us before we say goodbye?
Nah, just enjoying Chris's hand puppets.
That is way out of context if nobody can see the video.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Maybe that's my point. Yeah, I really have no hot take for this week. What I paid attention to wasn't that bad this week. Maybe that's my hot take. Just lack of stuff for me to pay attention to, and it might just be, the lack of people there. You don't get as much buzz about it. I don't know what I tuned in for. I enjoyed. It's been better than the weeks past, but yeah, nothing overly negative that hasn't been going negative for a while.
My hot take, and it was something we talked about earlier, is the more I think about it, if WWE does a whole angle on Drake Maverick leaving and they play it up every single match, then when he's let go and you don't actually re-sign him after making him do that, I'm never going to watch anything WWE ever again. And that is a promise to the grave. That includes NXT, sadly. But if that happens, I will never watch any WWE ever again. There's plenty of wrestling for me to watch. And it'll make this podcast a little more challenging, but I'm going to stick by that.
Now, does it have to be re-signed right away, or could it be 5-6 years down the road they re-sign him?
No, that's not going to change anything.
You got to put some restrictions on this.
I mean, the restrictions is like, if they let him go and within a month or something, or a couple months, they sign him back because they come back into some capital because people are watching wrestling again, then at that point, I'll go back on what I said. Well, I won't go back on what I said because I'm saying it right now. That's the range. But, from the second they let him go, I will stop watching until, something like that happens. And if it doesn't happen within a quick amount of time, or if it never happens, then I'm done. So I can watch AEW. I can watch. No, I'm not. It has nothing to do with Rockstar Spud as much as it does with the whole situation. And while I agreed with Chris that it would be interesting to run an angle where you use these things as real storylines, the important thing is at the end of that storyline that person is getting re-signed, and that they're, you have an employee that's basically getting on the screen and talking about how, it's no longer about winning championships, it's about feeding his family. And if that's the way you're going to play out the rest of his career, playing off of that honest speech that he had to the people on the internet, and then use that to build a good story, then you're so much more heartless than I ever thought you were. So we'll see where it goes. That's my slightly serious hot take. Past that, thank you everybody for listening this week. Chris, your cat's name is what? Pete or Peter?
Pete the cat.
Pete the cat. Okay, well, Pete the cat was meowing quite a bit in the background. So we thank you for watching episode 56, Sounds of a Pete Meowing.
He needs to eat at 11, so he's hungry. So then he talks. Sorry, folks.
It's all good. He wasn't that loud. I heard him a couple times and I was like, well, there's my episode name. I could make it episode 56. Chuck really doesn't think Britt Baker is working.
You mean Chelsea Green?
True.
Oh,
That should be the name of the episode. You mean Chelsea Green?
well, gentlemen. Well, I will preface the very end of this with we were supposed to record last night. I had an opportunity to go spend some time with my family, so that's what I did. I appreciate that the guys
And eat pie.
Not like
specifically pie.
Yeah, buttermilk pie, not pie like The Rock would talk about pie, because that would be very disturbing. So thank you.
You like pie?
I can tell you do by the weird face that you just made. So thank you everybody, and thank you guys for let me push this back a day. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Family's important, especially during all this crap.
Yeah. So everybody out there, be safe. We hope you enjoyed this show, and we will see you next week, or maybe this week, same week. Is Sunday the beginning of a new week?
It depends on who you ask.
Yeah. It's been a while since I've had one of these weird, like, we don't actually end the episode, like, clearly episodes. So maybe at some point, you know,
it's really too bad that we can't just like stop the taping while Jimmy's talking.
I mean, but why would you want to stop